Okay, welcome back, Baruch Hashem. We're back to our normal schedule on Thursday night, B'nai Hora, and we actually have started winter. I know last week we mentioned here in Israel it's been summer, but we have started winter, a bit of rain tonight, and the start of the cold weather, and the time is a little late. But Hashem, wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos and also a Shavuot overhead. We never know what's coming our way here. So many things going through the news passing this way and that way, but just have to remember that we're just in the hands of Hashem. And with that, wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos and a wonderful week ahead. Abba, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Naftali. Okay, um, so we headed tonight's talk is what we learned from our forefathers, and it's things that we take for granted, but it's so many interesting things, and you see even something quite new, which is none of the books, but we'll mention it towards the end. But first of all, this is Parshas Chayei, and the Medrash says that why did Sora pass away when she heard that her son Yitzchak was taken up on the mountain of Moriah, in that to be as a sacrifice, which of course Hashem never meant, but Hashem, and there's another medrash that always says that that if you ask Hashem to ask Avram to do something which was very difficult, he wouldn't do it, and Avram Avinu, it seems that he was just somebody just very, very special. He understood that there's a world, and he understood there's a God, and he's understood that the Rabbanu Shalom, our God, is the only God, and in the Torah is given to Bnei Yisrael to keep, and this was one of the mitzvahs of the Torah, the Akedah of the sacrifice, and of course it didn't help. And I always say this, and I think it's so true, just that it becomes part of our thinking. And then when we daven in the morning, we start off with the brachas of tefillin and tilas yadayim, washing our hands, and then we have all the brachas of that Hashem sort of runs everything. What's the bracha that we thank Hashem Shelo Sani Goy? We're not a heathen. That we said Shelo He gave me strength. Pokaych Ivrim, He opens our eyes. All the beautiful brachas that we say until the end of that chapter, and then before we go into the davening, so we take a piece of Chumash and we read that piece of Chumash. And what's that piece of Chumash? And like we said that it's the Akedah. The Akedah is that Hashem asked Abraham to take Yitzhak and to bring him up on a Mizbeach, where Hashem's just that is exactly what Hashem wanted, just to bring him on the Mizbeach and then to take him down, and that and in that, and I actually mentioned it I think 2 weeks ago, that it says that Hashem is going to bless the nations of the world because Avraham Avinu listened and was prepared to go along with what Hashem wanted. In other words, that the reason the etra of the world was there because there was an Avram Avinu. There was a person like Avram Avinu, and it mentions the Akedah and how and how Avram Avinu listened. So um, it's sort of not part of the davening. The davening is praise to Hashem, like in the Hallelujahs, and we sing Az Yoshir at the end of the Psukkah de Zimra, the first part of the davening until Baruch Hu, and but we have here is just a incident in the Torah, but it was very important because sure there's a God, and sure that this Avraham Avinu believed in God, right? Now, who is Avraham Avinu? Was he very special? So the Torah brings it down right at the beginning of the davening, that we davening and we part of the Jewish nation because we all descendants of Avram Avinu, and who Avram Avinu was, that he was 100% like a servant to Rabbanu Shalom, similar to Moshe at the end, was called the Eved Hashem. So that makes us who we are. In other words, we who are we that we take on upon this religion? The answer is because we are the children, grandchildren, great grandchildren of Avram Avinu. So therefore, that's our nation, and that's Bnei Yisrael, and we part of Bnei Yisrael. And Avram Avinu was the first real channel to recognize Hashem, that there's a God in this world, and he listened to Hashem implicitly. So we on to a good wicked, you know what I mean? We doing what we are taught from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and eventually when they receive the Torah, and that's we the follow through of Avram Avinu, and that tells who we are. You know what I mean? It tells who we are. Uh, it's not like Hamas who believe in Allah, and who is Allah? They say, well, anything good or idea that they have is from all the regions, or is from the Jewish religion, but they don't have a book of mitzvahs. They don't have great people, right? So they have people who wrote the Koran, and where it says in the Koran, it advises them unfortunately, to kill Jews, or to kill, and to act in such a terrible way. So we just see that there's just nobody like us, nobody like Bnei Yisrael. And we're not going into all the religions of Christians or whatever it is, but that's just good enough. So when we say that we talk about to learn from our forefathers, that's the first great person we learn from is from Avram Avinu, as far as being Jewish. If we could go back a little bit, Avram, to go to Adam, and we're not going into that right now. So, and then came the first, that when Avram was married to Sarah, right? And this speaks Chaya Sarah, and she died because of what you heard about Yitzchak, and how Avram came and he bought Maris Machpelah. So it's very interesting, because the land was given to Bnei Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael was given explicitly in the Torah, which is 2,000 years old in script, that they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there it tells us, to whom belongs this little piece of ground, which the world doesn't allow Bnei Yisrael to have, or doesn't want them to have, and so and then when Abraham had to bury Sarah, so he bought the cave of Machpelah, right? So and he bought it for good money. So even if a person wanted to say that, like Eretz Yisrael is to be split up, or this, that, and the other. Instead of fighting and saying, "Look, it belongs to me anyway," right? So you see, and they had those people living in that part, and he bought it from them. So really, it's how can you say that the land doesn't belong to us? You know, uh, it does belong to us, and he went out his way to have it. But then now Avram saw that he had Yitzhak, who was nearly sacrificed. He's getting older. It's time to make a shidduch, right? So who was the first shadchan? What's a shadchan? A shadchan is a person tries to put two people together to introduce them to get married. So Avram Avinu was the first shadchan that he had a son. He needed to find a wife. So he thought, where's the best place to find a wife? And that's from Sarah's family, right? And therefore he asked Eliezer, his manservant, to go and find her. So we have said this before, and we love to hear it again and again, that he Eliezer came and he wanted to test her if she's worthy of being the wife of Yitzhak, who's going to carry on the Jewish nation. So he said if she would give me to drink, if she would give my camels to drink. It is so, so important, is midat tovus, to be kind and to be considerate, if somebody comes into the house, offer them something to drink, something to eat, be look to see what they may need. Persons looking for charity, we all give to charity, and we'd be happy that we thank God we have the wherewithal to give the charity, and that's what we do. But the famous question is that when Sarah went to the water to give water to the camels and to Eliezer, the water came up. It's like the well of water swelled to the top, right? Making it much easier to put a pitcher in and to take out water. So she was a wonder woman, right? She was not a plain young girl, who went out to help the family and bring water into the home. But it miracles happened when she went to do what she was when she went to do what she was supposed to do. So isn't that good enough to be acclaimed as a potential wife for Yitzhak? So one I heard it from someone, I can't remember originally. He says that when you marry a woman, he says you don't want a wonder woman. You know what I mean? You don't want a woman who he says, you ask her, Sarah, what's for well, not excuse me, Rivka, what's for supper tonight? She says, "Look, I haven't managed to put together a supper. Well, I mean, in South Africa, I haven't gone to Moshe's, right? Or over here, everybody tonight is shopping all over wherever they can to bring food into the house. I haven't, managed that." But he says, "I got a couple of fancy tricks to show you." You know what I mean? I'm a Wonder Woman. He says a person doesn't want a Wonder Woman. He wants somebody who can make a good gefilte fish. He wants someone who knows to put on a chicken, right? And he wants someone who make sure that there's always everything is clean in the house. So that's what a person wants. That's the main thing, not anything, not anything else. But so therefore, that even with the even with the ability of doing marvelous things, right? But Yitzhak, he understood that the good woman is that the one he knows how to run the house, knows how to make sure that Friday night is a nice piece of kugel on the table, right? Not not a book of tricks, or no, not of something that she did something, whatever it is. And and that's so important. And we it reminds me of the old story, but I'm going to say it again, that when one of the Rosh Hashivas of Telz, his wife, his daughter, was a top girl, imagine, and the father's a Rosh Hashiva, and she's looking for shidduch. So where does she go? She gets the best boys from all the fancy yeshivas, whether it's Hebron or this or that, and she could never find the right guy. Could never find the right guy. And there was one person that they all said, this has got to be the right. So she says, look, I'll tell you afterwards. And she came back and she says, "Oi, shidduch." She says, "We'll find somebody else." So what happened? That they went out on a date, and she had a suitcase in her hand, and the date maybe took whatever it is, about 2 hours. They went out, they walked, they stopped somewhere for a drink, and took her home, and she carried the suitcase for 2 hours. So the first thing she said to her parents, she says, not one time did he say, "Can I carry the suitcase for you?" Right? It just a simple, nice thing to do, right? And that's so very, very important. So we're under a shidduchim. That's one of the things that we did. In fact, we last night we had such a meeting. Just it's not easy to make a shidduch between two people unless you know them both well and how to introduce them, and we try all kinds of things. But one thing is, I remember I wrote a list of things when they get together and they talk together, and even a person goes on a date together. These are things you should talk about. Not to who's who won the latest soccer game or basketball game or whatever it is. What have to write? You have to talk about how do you want to raise your children? How do you want to run your house? How these are the things, and how much chesed and kindness and things like that person should do. So there we learn already so many things from Avram Avinu, that he was the first shadchan, and he looked for, and he knew where his agent should go to look for a wife, and the agent knew what was important to Avram Avinu, and these are the things which is so very, very important, and these actually make a marriage and make things make it worth. But the most important, well, the same thing with Yitzhak, that when the servant Eliezer came from the house of Betuel, the family of Avram's family, so he was coming in the field. He was in the field, and Yitzhak was walking in the field. The Torah uses the language lasur basode to talk, like to daven in the field. That he went to, they say he went to daven mincha, and he saw her, and she asked Eliezer, "Who's this fella?" She says, "That's Yitzhak. This is the guy that we all want you to meet, and hopefully that you're going to marry him." So it says that she slid off. If you look in the Torah in those verses in this week's parsha, that she slid down the side of the camel, right? Um, and the Torah uses the language nafal, to fall down. So we say that this is the first woman who fell for a man, but the idea is in nafal that she got off the camel, and then she said she took something to cover herself, vatiskos, and she covered, and that's tzniut. And tzniut is so important. Is modesty, how a person dresses. Person shouldn't dress that, dress less and invite everybody to look at the person. That's not the Jewish way. And so it teaches us the idea of tznius. And then it says that Yitzhak, um, he took her into the house of his mother, right? So the woman used to have a separate place where sometimes, especially if a man had more than one wife in those days, so each one had their own house, own place, and by and he took her into his mother's abode where she was, and what's and so interesting is that the Torah doesn't mention love at the moment, right? But he certainly, there was an attraction, right? Because the Torah goes out of its place to mention that the imahot, that the mothers of Israel were all pretty, and a person should be pretty in the husband's eyes, not in everybody else's eyes, right? If a person is happy with someone, so that's it. You don't go, shopping around. You go, somebody is happy, you interested, but that doesn't make the marriage. It says he brought her into her mother's house, and he noticed that, and the Chazal say that there was like a cloud of glory over the house from week to week. The candles kept alight from the entire work, and I think the bread remained fresh for the which he baked for Shabbos for the whole week. And as soon as he came into the house, you know, maybe they were there for a time. It doesn't say they got married that day. And he saw that all these things returned. So he says he brought her into his mother's house. In other words, seeing that she had the midot tovot, and the good ways of his mother, because the signs were there that they all came back, because Sarah was there, and then it says Vayehoveho, and he loved her, right, and he said Vayis, he married her and he loved her. So love is very important, right? But it has to be there, and it should, you can't marry someone just because, like when you listen to all the stories of the royal family, to me it's people enjoy listening to all the stories, and there was a Diana in the back, and Charles had, imagine, the King of England, known to everybody, and he had a girlfriend. Crazy, crazy. I mean, people they're supposed to set an example to millions of people, and instead that they did everything which was suited them in just their Yetzirah, the evil inclination, and I always say that. Okay, and can't speak about Lashon Hara, about all these things. We don't know all, but what's apparent, and everybody see that they had this. So it it has to be, there has to be pure love for that person, and based on immediate on nice things. So the way that Sarah conducted her life, that Rivka was certainly going to conduct her life in the same way, and that's what makes a great marriage. That's something which is forever. It's the most wonderful thing a person can have is that a relationship between a husband and wife, and they become the best of friends and the best of they keep each other company for please decades and decades and decades. So that's another thing. The way the way the introduction and the coming into the marriage and everything else like that was also set in the Torah. Beautiful, absolutely. Absolutely, and we're going to learn later on in the next parshas, the story of Rivka and her husband, and their sons, and so much to learn, like from all the things of the of our patriots. And the Torah writes it. The Torah writes it. Very interesting. The Torah writes it before the Torah was given. The stories of the Torah was written. It's only when they left Egypt, at the time we left Egypt, what they had to do with the matzah and everything like the korban pesach, the paschal lamb, and then after passing through Red Sea and after going to the desert, eventually that they got to the Torah. But the stories and where they conducted themselves was so important. So I saw something that's like brand new. When I say word brand new it's not written in any of the books, but something which I'm going to mention, and I always test something with a great person, which I did today just before I left the Carlisle. This guy is one of the wizards of the based in Yerushalayim, the same based in which Rabbi Sternbuch sits. So anyway, what is it? It says that when Sora, when they after Sora had died and Abraham sent Eliezer to find a wife, and we said that he found Rivka, and Eliezer didn't want to wait. He says everything came from Hashem, and they said, like wait a couple of months, wait a year, First said wait a year, and then he says at least a couple of months, but she was ready, for the new chapter in life. So the verse reads in chapter 12, no 22, the chapter 22 of this week's Parsha, Surah, Chaya Surah, and it's verse 60. So when I was looking, writing down things this afternoon in preparation for the Shia, actually wrote it down because it's nice to be able to look for it. Chapter 22, but it's correct, when it's verse 60. So it says that her mother and her brother, like the family, they all turned to Rivka before she left, and she says that may you be blessed, and may you be the mother of a huge nation, like of many families, many people, right? And may you overcome all your enemies. That's it. That's what the pasuk says, that you should be stronger than all of your enemies. So I was sitting there and I said, what do you mean you should overcome all your enemies? Which enemies did she have? She was a young little girl. She just got married, she's just getting married. She's leaving her parents' home. She's told that we give you a bracha, a blessing, right? And and that you should outdo all your enemies. What enemies? Who did she? She stole Yitzhak from somebody else, or she did anything wrong? What enemies should she have? So the answer is, you want to compare it to something else, and then you'll see it's fantastic that in Yerushalayim and before the state, so there was the Rav of Yerushalayim, and he was a great tzaddik and a great Talmid Chacham, and he was at the opening of a new cheder, a new school, a new yeshiva. So he said like this. It says that when we take out the Torah, so we say that that may all those who hate Torah be put aside. That they shouldn't. It says Vahi bin Saron, when the Aaron was carried. Vayom Moshe, and Moshe says, Kuma Hashem, come up Hashem, vayufutsu oivecho miponecho, and may all your enemies be spread from before you. So the Rav said, what does it mean over here? That every time we open the ark, you say, may all the enemies of Torah be spread away or scattered. Why say it? Just you're opening a yeshiva, or you're opening the ark, and you mentioned that they're the enemies. There's no what somebody is somebody ready to shoot or to say something, and if he said it at the opening of a new yeshiva in Yerushalayim. So he said this, such chokmah. I actually saw this in one of the books by Rabbi Pliskin, a friend of mine from Telz, and he said it in the Rov's name. So he said that because whenever there is good in the world, whenever there's Torah, whenever you're doing something which is to be praised, there's always people who scorn it. There's always people who are jealous. There's always people who say, oh, you're opening a new yeshiva. We don't need it. We have this enough space in the old one. And it costs money and don't do it. But they actually was doing a wonderful thing. But you have people that denounce it. It's so much like it in the world. If somebody's successful, there's always people who, say, but the person's not such a good person, and this and that and the other. So that's what he said over there. So the same thing over here also. When Sarah, excuse me, when Rivka was chosen to be the wife of Yitzhak, Sarah's son Yitzhak, who was brought on the Akedah. So this was a super duper shidduch. Yitzhak, like Avraham Avinu, heard the Rabbanu Shalom, or were in any way that they were subject to the Shekhinah, the God's presence on Har Moriah, on the mountain, right? And so there was nobody like him in the whole world, right? And you have this young girl, Rivka, has been chosen to be his wife and to have children and to carry on the future of Bnei Israel. So it was a wonderful moment. It is so much kedusha, so much love, and so much that the people were waiting to see what's going to come out of this union, right? But then, when this is what the Rav said, whenever there's pure goodness, pure love, pure Torah, right? There are always people who snub it, and there's always somebody who brings scorn and hatred and jealousy and give an evil eye and horror. The Gemara says most people die from eye and horror, from an evil eye. So over here, you can imagine there's so many people who were jealous of that moment, of that fantastic union of Rivka and Yitzhak, right? So therefore, the bracha was that you should be a wondrous parent of many Bnei Israel, and it'll swell up into a huge nation, and it will bring so much good and light and happiness, right? So therefore, all those people who are scorning at this time should be stopped and overcome. In other words, they're giving the bracha that any bad thoughts should not have any power over that very special time, and so that's if you look at the pasuk, it says that they should overcome their enemies, right? What enemies? There'll be enemies. Right now there were no enemies, right? But there will be people. There will be jealous. There will be whole nations that will want to do the wrong thing, and that's that's the lesson. And if I really and so you see how much we can learn, and from all the little incidents of our forefathers, and just going back what we're talking about South Africa. Tell you the truth, it's been something that I was hoping that it never would happen. That they said that they're sending in Hamas to South Africa, or sending in these people, similar to what's happened in New York, that they have a person who speaks fluent Arabic. He's an Arab himself. His wife's an Arab, and they're running a successful city like in New York. Millions of people, millions of Jews, right? And here also that South Africa has been a successful haven for Bnei Israel. So just like Rivka and Yitzhak were given a bracha, so we must give brachas to South Africa, that they should, please God, not have any kind of hurt from Hamas, or people who are being just flown into a country without visas, without anything. And well, interesting to see what's going to happen. And please God that the Rabbanu Shalom should always take care of us. And I just want to end off that a lot of people, and we always mention Rav Moshe Sternbuch, because he was in South Africa, and a lot of us met him, and we enjoyed his powerful spirit. And he said that Hashem has always watched over Bnei Israel in New York, in America, and Hashem will continue to watch over them. Please God, the same thing should be for South Africa. Okay. Shkaya, thank you.